Okay, so we are live on Facebook now from this amazing Zoom meeting, and I'm here today with Victoria Redbard. So great to have you on this call. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you.
Amazing. So I'm going to be watching the Facebook Live for comments, and so if you guys are watching live, jump in with your comments. If you're watching the replay, share any questions or thoughts that come up that you love. Really, I love it when people do that too. But I'm quite excited for this conversation with you today, Victoria, because I know you have a lot of, I suppose, innovative thoughts around leadership and the future and who we're becoming. So I'm really, really keen to give you space to explore some of those thoughts and just sort of share your little bit of visionary insight into the future, if that makes sense.
I'd love to.
Amazing. So whereabouts are you today, just for anyone tuning in?
I'm at home with the little pugster. Apparently he's been partying with everyone from the Gold Coast and Byron while I've been in Mexico. So maybe you should leave us a comment if you partied with Maury over Christmas.
Oh, it gets around, huh? That's so funny.
Just getting all these selfies of like Maury with everyone in the Gold Coast. It's been amazing. I loved it.
So like he needs his own channel almost.
Yeah, basically.
It's like it's a new hashtag trend of I partied with Maury.
It is. It's like now he's here. He wants to be on the live. It's his first time he sat on me all day. He just knows I'm going live.
Priorities. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, well, I've got questions structured for this, but of course, go where you feel the energy and the aliveness is, which I'm sure you would anyway. So
generally my flavor.
Yeah, cool. So my first question is, who is Victoria Redbard?
Who am I? Oh, that's a very deep question for starting off. All right. Well, I am Maury's mother, first and foremost. Yeah, I'm a somatic sexologist. I am an advocate for self-pleasure and sexuality and new paradigm relationships and new paradigm intimacy and yeah, a way of being that evolves around us thriving and experiencing high performance and balance in our lives.
Awesome. Cool. So I am keen to hear the insights from that kind of lens and perspective. Our very first question is, what did you love most about 2019?
I loved the tension of 2019. I feel like that was a year of just like the most amount of control. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I've got you.
Oh, okay. Yep. I feel like it was a year of the most amount of contraction and the biggest expansion for me. So I really like that feeling of just like really starting to love the tension because I knew that it was going to lead to expansion. So that was definitely a good lesson and learning and experience in 2019.
Cool. And what's something that you're really grateful to have ended in the past decade?
In the past decade?
Yeah.
I'm really grateful. The thing that's coming to me is I'm really grateful that I stopped treating my business like a hobby and found the confidence to actually make it actually a business. And so that I can, so now, because I'm seeing all the like the speed and the expansion that can move at now that I've stopped confining myself to stories of what it can be. So I'm glad that I stopped all my stories so that I can step forward.
And so what's shown up when you stopped that?
A lot of expansion and a lot of everything's just easeful. Like all the things that I thought couldn't be have become, because I've let go that they like I've stepped into a frequency where anything is possible. And I'm seeing, and not only am I able to be in that for myself, but I'm able to see that happen for so many of the students at the New Paradigm Intimacy Institute and all of my other clients. It's like everybody's kind of stepping into this new way of doing relating and yeah, like on a personal level, it's like all the relationships that I'm just seeing people around me have a whole new way of seeing and doing relationships, because they're watching how I have created that for myself. And so anybody who's in a relationship with me, a lot of people have come to me with like trust issues, or like, you know, heartbreak, or feelings that they're going to get hurt and things like that. And I've just watched a lot of people step into this idea that like actually this new paradigm of relating means that there is no getting hurt, and there is no like separation between sexuality and having a professional relationship. It's like we get to be in all of ourselves, and that has rippled out across all the people that I know and love. And it's really exciting to watch people actually go for what they desire and not have to question whether something is on brand, or whether they're going to get hurt, or whether they can trust this person, and all these pieces. A lot of that has dropped away because of the frameworks that I have been creating with people to just show up more in the love, and the love without so much attachment, and the love without the crippling stories of what it means to be in love. Because I guess what I'm seeing is that there's a massive shift between what is love and what is relating. And when people fall in love, they think that they have to relate in a certain way. And when people have conversations with me, they kind of get that that's a completely separate experience for me, and for most of the people that are in my life now. So there's a real like liberation, I think, for what's about to step even more into expansion of this year, is people starting to recognize that they can fall in love and still choose how they want to relate with that person. So they can have the deepest intimacy they want to experience, and the most amount of freedom.
Yeah. We had a few comments, so I'm going to share those.
Yeah.
We had Sigoni sharing OMG Tantric Pug, and
yes.
You need to make him a channel, Vic.
No, because he'll get more followers than me, guys. I'm not doing it.
It could boost your brand. Anyway, yeah, that cracked me up too. It's interesting because when you said something about stop treating your business like a hobby, right? For me, it was like stop treating love like it's an afterthought, or it's a separate from two. Like it was almost similar.
Yeah. Yeah, they feel like they are tied in for me. It's like what, like, because there's this whole thing, right, when we think about sexuality and business, and they've been like, in the old paradigm, it feels like they've just been pushed the furthest away from each other. And I feel like this new way of doing business is actually like being fully connected to your sexuality, being able to have the relationships that you want to have with the people that it maybe inside the business as well. Like there's so much sexual tension inside of businesses. I was writing about this over the Christmas period, about people having this permission slip called the Christmas party, right? When they go to the Christmas party, like all those rules around who you can and cannot interact with change at the Christmas party for some reason. Like it's so funny to watch. And yeah, just like breaking that down. And it's not about like having sex with everyone in your business, but it's about being able to be seen as a sexual being within inside of your business. Because like we're like, and not having to create so much like separation of like it's almost like business can be so the opposite of intimacy. Like one of the sayings that really like grinds my gears.
We have to be
like,
professional.
Yes, being professional, saying things like kind regards. Have you ever, imagine if you had a lover that sent you a message that said, kindest regards, see you Saturday, you know, like it would just be so weird. Like, why do we talk to each other like that? Like, why does that make us feel safe? Like, actually, it doesn't make me feel safe. When someone sends me an email with that kind of language, it has the opposite of making me feel like, oh, this is a great person that I want to do business with. You know, like I want more personality, more aliveness, more eros in business. And so that's really what I'm a stand for, and what I think that we can create in this new paradigm, and what 2020 can offer us. It's like, what if we actually, you know, I know like most people that are in this new paradigm of business and are starting to, you know, are on the cutting edge of all the marketing techniques, are starting to understand that really what people want more than anything in the world is connection. And that's intimacy. So it's like, if we can create that level of like fully showing up as ourselves, that's actually what creates intimacy. And if we're not shutting down any part of our sexuality, we're not shutting down any part of our aliveness and our excitement and having to be really stern and serious because we're being professional, like that is going to be a better place for business to come from. And that would actually create businesses that I would want to work for, and that people want to work for. Because like any part, like I remember I used to work in corporate back when I lived in the UK a very, very long time ago. And it was just this feeling of like, as you walk into the office, to just like come into silence, like a library, you know, it's like that feeling of like shut down all personality to go to robot, you know, and that's like, that's the really far away, I think, from what the new paradigm of business gets to look like. And I mean, if you look at somewhere like Google or Apple or all these like head offices, like they know where it's at. They're following, you know, they know that creativity and good work ethic comes from people having fun and people following their aliveness and not shutting down their personalities and not shutting down their soul's truth, you know. So like that's really what this is about for me. It's like, if we can incorporate sexuality, I mean, don't even get me started on like creating from the 5D, and like that's the access point. So if we have that access point through our sexuality to start working with that, like our creative energy is our sexual energy, right? So if we're going to start allowing our eros to come online in the business, it's only going to expand our creativity, which is only going to speed up evolution and growth for the planet, for us, for, you know, climate change. Every single thing that is a possibility can only get better if we allow our eros to become part of our business. That's my 2020 transmission.
There's so many bits. Yeah, exactly. And like there's so many parts of that too, like the compassion and the empathy and the connectedness that comes out of that too, the ability to see each other however we are, and that even when we're different and we're choosing not to walk a similar path or agree with each other or whatever it is, that there's still finding spaces between us where, you know, we honor that love, and the eros inside us has a place. So
and to create like business where humans come first, because actually when we've been putting like business before humans, that's actually what's been like killing the planet. That's what's been actually like creating I actually heard from a friend of mine the other day, like we have all the technology to like save the planet in the ways it needs to be saved, but we're not doing that because we're putting money first. And when we're putting money in business before humans, then we're like, it's just so retarded. Like, why would we do that? So it's like, if we could put humans first and we started caring about like the human experience, you know, and like the human heart, and if everything is more an expansion, then it's going to actually just have a knock-on effect in every single area, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think we could spend 50 hours on this one question. I'm going to keep going.
Yes, please.
Because I think we tangented from the question anyway, but that's the point.
Okay.
The point.
So we did
have a few comments on that one too. So that was Joanna Green sharing creativity is central to any business. So there's always sexual tension to any business interaction. And then she also said, yes, everything gets down to intimacy and love, and we want to be connected. So very much vibing with that convo. Awesome. So my next question is, what do you think we learned as a collective last year?
I think we really got to the stage where we recognized that this super hyper focused business first, almost like, I mean, if we want to gender it, this kind of yang masculine approach to business where we push ourselves and burn ourselves out, talking for myself, then it's like, it's not working. And like, I've been really like tuning into this new way of this new frequency, which I've known all along is the truth. And it's like this new paradigm of business is more about like understanding energy, and understanding that we can actually, the more we're in alignment with our own frequency and our own energy, that's actually going to actually create the shifts that we want to create. So it's not about working, you know, 23 hours of a 24-hour day. It's about utilizing the time that we have and being more and more comfortable in that expansion and contraction. Like, I feel like that's really what I learned and what I saw for a lot of from people in my life. Like, the old ways are not working anymore. And that goes across the board, relationships and business. So even like, if I look at how that shows up in relationships, I think that there's just coming across the board now, people are starting to recognize that like, we are not living in like a paradigm anymore where we choose that one partner when we're 16 and we stay with them for the rest of our lives. Like, I don't know many people that are in that experience anymore. No. My grandparents were in that experience. My parents are still in that experience, but the people of our generation are not usually in that experience. And I think that's because there's a lot more options and a lot more choice in our everyday life now. And so with that choice becomes this state of like, you can choose whether you want to create contraction around all those choices you have, or you can live in a state of thriving and high performance. And to live in a state of thriving and high performance, you need to prioritize that above everything else. Whereas what we were prioritizing maybe in the old paradigm is like staying with that one person like for the sakes of like pride and like for the sakes of just like this is the right thing to do. So it's kind of like letting go of that idea that there's a right and wrong thing to do, and stepping into what creates a thriving environment for our nervous system and for the planet, for everything basically. And when we prioritize like thriving and high performance in our relationships, we always put ourselves first and then our partner and then our relationships, rather than having it the other way around, which is the old paradigm where we just put the relationship above everything. So the people in that relationship are like worshiping the relationship. And it's the same with business, right? It's like the people in the old paradigm are worshiping the business like this is the thing that needs to survive above all else. And what I'm saying is like, what happens if we flip that on its head and we say, what would it look like if we created the business and the relationships to be like a foundation that holds up the people and supports the people living in their life?
Yeah. Sorry, I tuned out. I had, messages come in and you're like, stop messaging me. I'm on a call.
Well,
and the thing is, no one knows so that you're on a call, so they don't stop messaging. It doesn't work.
Oh.
It's all good.
I can tell you what my lesson is again.
No, that's okay. This evolving thing for me is like, and it, like, there's even the weird question of like, which collective did you mean? Because I didn't say, and it just, what we feel is the collective. Like we have our small group we know, we have our larger group in our audience and the general community we interact with, and then we have the whole nation or the whole world. And so many times that collective feels like there's parts that we're separate from still. So it's really intriguing, and I loved the conversation, because it's also, there's no right answer. So but that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, this is what's curious about the collective for me, right? So I actually last year I had a really, really intense experience of seeing both ends of the spectrum of like counseling and self-development and coaching, because I worked in an employment agency with my university, volunteering 1 day a week. And so I was faced with people who were really just wanting to get by. Like they were vibrating on the space of like, how do I get a house? How do I have get a job? How do I have any kind of relationship, never mind a thriving relationship, and how do I get on with my children? Like that's the level that they were dealing with. And then I was also working with a lot of like millionaires, so they're dealing with the, very different set of problems or issues. But collectively, the experiences they were having were exactly the same. Like I was teaching the same things. I was sharing the same messages with both of these people, because it's all like, so for me, that was my experience of the collective, is just seeing the diversity of people that I was working with and speaking to, who were in my ecosystem in that stage of my life, and noticing that it's all the same stuff that us humans are dealing with. So it's perfect, really.
Yeah, no, I loved hearing that too, because it's interesting when you do surround yourself sometimes with innovators, like you start to think that that's normal, and then like, oh, well, and then you're in certain groups and you're like, oh, they're not really. Well, I guess what I'll say is I used to have the experience certain people weren't up for some conversations. But what I'm finding, one of the things I learned in 2019 about the collective is there is a lot more permission for conversations in communities that wouldn't have had permission before.
Yeah, I agree.
Like the edge of what we can talk about has moved.
Yeah, totally. I mean, they let me talk about sexuality at business spaces now. It's great.
Yeah, I know. I've seen you, and you drop everyone into their genitals, and then you get them to work together.
That's what we do.
It's actually amazing to watch, and it's amazing to watch the layers of people fall away a bit as they go through. There's so much walls between us, and I really love seeing that. So awesome.
Me too. My favorite.
So what's the most important leadership trend that you sort of saw rising over the last decade?
That piece that I said to you about this whole like yang way of doing things, and like working ridiculous hours and feeling like we have to work so hard to make things happen. I feel like that's the thing that I've seen dropped away. And like across my little collective that I'm seeing is like, there's just this more easeful, like graceful, if we want to call it feminine way of doing business, and it's way more about magnetism than pushing something uphill. And my belief is like, more we try to push anything uphill and force anything to happen, the harder it's going to be for us in this year, because like the universe is just responding to how much can you be in your bliss, and how much can you attract that frequency to you. It's just, and again, I can just compare this with business and relationships. It's like, actually, my friend Vienna gave me a good like, what's the word, like analogy about this the other day. It's like treating your social media actually how you want to be treated in real life. And so if you check your social media for likes, and you're trying to get those likes on your social media, imagine if someone was trying to do that to you in a relationship, like constantly looking for validation from you. And it's like, actually, when you start to move that frequency across the board, and say, like, you know, if you're not looking for anything from anybody in your relationships, you're not looking to push or make anything happen in your business, it's actually just going to come to you, because that's the frequency we see in the universe, right? If you have a guy that's texting you all the time and like bugging you and wants to see you every day, and is like, feels disappointed and let down because he has all these expectations of how he wants you to show up, you're probably going to be a bit turned off by that. And that for me feels like he's pushing something uphill. He's trying to make some sort of relationship happen. But if you've got a guy that's just like in his bliss and he's having a fucking great time, and he messages you every now and then and tells you how awesome, like, he's enjoying life, how much he's enjoying life, you are going to feel naturally compelled to want to message that man and spend time with that man, because that is the nature of the universe. And what I'm seeing is that we're just realizing that there's no separation from dating to business now. So that way that we're doing dating is exactly how we want to be doing business. It's like, do I want to be like pushing uphill all the time and like begging people to buy my product? Like, no, like I don't even want those people. If people have too many questions about the product and how it's all going to work and how the programs work and all this sort of stuff, I'm like, you're probably not going to get the transformation you need in my program. Because I feel like to step into to get the transformation you need in the programs that I run, it's like, how much can you truly believe in aligning with the frequency of your sexuality? You know, my biggest go-to is just like, if you've got a block, go and self-pleasure and come back to me. Go and self-pleasure and come back to me and ask me the same question again, because I guarantee you're going to have more clarity. This is how it's all working now. It's just like, once you are in this right frequency and you're able to create transformation for yourself, you don't have to push anything uphill.
So, I was just imagining like boardrooms and meetings running like that, like if there's like,
that's the goal.
you know, tension between different departments. Go self-pleasure and come back to the meeting. See what we've got.
We can have self-pleasure pods in like corporate spaces. That's where it's going.
Man. Oh, this is fun. Okay.
That's what 2020 means.
So looking forward, right? So we're going to shift to looking forward more into the future. So what's new and exciting that you're doing and creating in 2020? What's coming?
Oh, I'm just wondering out how many of my secrets I should share now. You know what? I actually wrote about this as well the other day. Like, I don't actually really have a massive plan for 2020. For me, it's like, how much can I listen to, like, what is happening in this moment, and literally just act from there. Like, my plans are very much like, I guess I've really like dropped away from how do I create impact and how do I change the world of like sexuality, because everything's fucked and it all needs to change. Like, I'm really not in that vibration anymore. I don't think that's what the universe is asking from me anymore. Like, it's like there is no war to end. There's no massive thing that needs changing. All that I keep getting is just like, just keep listening and moving forward, and just like watching that happen. And the more I like can just enjoy the contraction and the expansion of that, things are just going to come to life. So things I'm excited about are being able to take people on that journey with me and have them realize that they don't need to push uphill anymore. Like, all of my, you know, I have the students at the Institute of New Paradigm Intimacy, which is my sexuality school, which we are going into the second round now. So that is something that I'm working on this year. And I just really don't want them to have to be in the same experience as I had when I came into the world of business and sexuality, where I thought that everything needed to be really difficult, and I had to understand every marketing strategy, and I had to do all these things. Like the pieces for them is just to recognize that like they can do all the strategies, but unless they're backing it by their frequency, like it's not gonna travel through. And that's really what I'm actually excited about helping people get to, is actually learning how to cultivate that frequency within inside of themselves by freeing up all those parts of themselves that are in contraction. Because if you think about it, it's like, I was actually like, if we were talking about relationships again, and the word contract, like when we talk about things like STDs, for instance, or like disease or anything like that, it's this idea of contracting. So when the body is in contraction for long enough and it's in resistance, that's actually what's stopping us from having what we want in life. And I believe that sexuality is like, it's the most potent life force energy that we have. So when we start to activate our eros, our erotic energy in our body, and we learn how to channel that into all these places that we feel contracted, then we actually start to emit our own frequency, because this is no longer in contraction. So everything else in our life is a representation of that. The internal is just a representation of the external. So if we want to see, expansion in our business, or we want to see growth in 2020, and we want to look into the future and see, more love and more expansion and more, there's more bliss for everybody on the planet, then we need to get to releasing all of our attachments, releasing all of this contraction. I feel like this is stuff people have been saying for decades, but I think what's happening now for 2020 is that we're starting to actually collect tools. So like for me, like the self-pleasure modality, I'm on one now. The self-pleasure modality is actually like the future of therapy, and of like embodying these spiritual ideologies that we've known for years. Like Buddha can sit there and tell you to meditate under a tree for decades, but we're not going to do that in this paradigm. Like that's not going to happen. So how do we start to fast track into this experience of expansion? And that's what all these tools are about. Nothing is getting solved by people sitting around having talk therapy for decades and decades. We don't have time for that anymore. Like this is what needs to happen. We need to step into more of these embodied practices, which actually have us have transformation in a second, because we're not looking to attach to these stories and get bogged down in the ideas and the ideologies of what's right and wrong, what's good and bad, and how things need to be in the world. And to make a difference, we just need to get really freed up inside of the body so that we can see that externally. Yeah. And that's what the self-pleasure modality gives you. That's what all these dance modalities give you. This is like, what all of the people that I see that are working in sexuality and dance and embodiment in general are all trying to offer us, is this fast track to clarity and expansion, and just feeling clear in our vessels so that we can feel that in our lives.
Yeah. And perhaps if there's someone listening that hasn't gone much into learning about what you're calling self-pleasure, it's not the same as masturbation at all. I mean, tell us, so like share a little bit on that, because people are like, okay, so I just sit there, rub a few out, my life gets better. Like, how does this work, right? Basically. Tell me what's different, right?
Yeah. It's just like, fuck talk therapy, just masturbate. Like that's what you got to do for 2020.
So what's the difference with self-pleasure?
So to me, like masturbation is like, we're going to be with the body and we're just going to have like pleasure, arousal, or an orgasm, right? That's like the goal orientation. Again, it's kind of this forceful way. We're going to push something uphill until it happens. And then self-pleasure is more of this like magnetizing way. It's more receptive way of doing life. And that's what the whole paradigm of business is coming into therapy, into all these things. Like, how receptive can we be to our own bodies? So for me, self-pleasure is sit down and just allow all the energy that's in my head, that's been trying to work anything out, that's been trying to understand something, that's been judging something or having an opinion or creating a story around something. How do we let all that energy settle and come down through the body and into our body, so we can start to be with what's really there, which is actually our sensations. And when we just trace the sensations and be with the sensations through sound and breath and movement and touch, that's when we start to free up all of this part of us. Because actually so much of our decisions is actually coming from our gut anyway. And when we're not paying any attention to our gut, then we're probably eating the wrong things. We're actually making the wrong choices. We're making choices from a place of fear and not from love. So when we come into the body, we just create time and space for the body to start to speak to us, and the body holds such an innate wisdom. It's like there's so much intelligence that the body has to offer us that is actually missing when we try to comprehend and understand everything through just this tiny little bit of mind that we have going on up here. It's just like there's so much more for us to work with when we're making decisions from all these places down here. Then we're making more heart-centered decisions and making decisions that are better for the collective, more in our creativity rather than from the mind, which is actually quite tricky and can create a lot of fear and a lot of story around how things have been in the past and what things can go wrong. So yeah, that's what self-pleasure is.
and it's not always what people would call pleasurable. Like there can be a lot of emotional release or intensity or different things there that are not what people would probably put in normally a sex category. Does that make sense?
I mean, yeah, not in the sex category. I like the way you put that, because I feel like everything gets to be pleasurable when we don't attach meaning to it, you know? So it's like actually having a good cry can be really pleasurable. And raging out can be really pleasurable. And it's like there's actually very like the receptors of pain and pleasure in the body are like very, very close together. So that's why, you know, we see a lot of people that are cultivating more pain in their life sometimes, is because there's actually a kick that people can create out of that. And yeah, there's a beauty in the movement of all energy. And if we start to relate to everything that is moving in the body as just energy, emotion, which is emotion, and we start to observe how that's rippling through us, whether that be the rage and the heat and the pace of rage, or whether that be the jitteriness of fear, and feel that fear and actually go into that fear. There's actually so much pleasure to be found in those experiences, and so much expansion and pleasure to be found in the discomfort if we have full acceptance of that discomfort.
Yeah. I love that explanation. It's amazing. Yeah. There's such like, yeah, it feels so calm and like after a storm. It's just like, it's like that. There's such a peacefulness to it. What projects are you working on over the next decade, or wanting to be working on? So they might be more your own projects, businesses, causes, researchers, contributions. What would you love to have coming through the next decade?
Well, what my vision is just to collect more and more research on, like, I have this project called Project Eros, and it's really about like taking all the pieces around sexuality and having people recognize that it is actually around your aliveness, and not necessarily around experiencing more pleasure as we might know it in this older concept of pleasure, right? It's not about getting off, I could say. It's more about being in your aliveness. And this project is just showing around how we can actually, if once we open up our sexuality, it has a knock-on effect of feeling more bliss, expansion, happiness, freedom, joy, peace with our careers, with our family, with our friends, with our health. Like all of it can be cultivated from freeing up that erotic energy that's in the body. And so, I mean, how that looks to me on a tangible level is like I have my TEDx talk coming up at some point this year, and after I do my TEDx talk, I'm going to crowdfund to get more and more research materials to start to show that the ability of what this self-pleasure modality can do. So I've already got a lot of research that, you know, and people I'm pretty much like, I don't know there's anyone that's done the self-pleasure thing with me that hasn't had expansion and change in their life. So this, like, I know that this works, and I want to prove that this works on an even bigger scale so that more and more people can have access to this.
That's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Boardrooms of self-pleasuring.
Masturbation for science.
Masturbation for science. Stadiums and stadiums of people getting off. That's what I want to see in 2020.
Yeah. See, we had to put that other bit before you go to those jokes. So, okay. Awesome. So my next question is a little bit of a time travel one. And so how old are you now?
I am 28.
Amazing. So we're going to time travel 10 years into the future to 2030. And so we've got 38-year-old Victoria. And so she's there in her life, looking out at the world.
Wow.
So just feel into a little bit of what's going on. I don't know if it's specific or general. Might be about you or the collective, or just feel it a little.
Okay.
And as you, from that place, remember back. So remember back over that last 10 years and all the things that happened. What question has been most important for leaders to help build and create and heal the world? What's really been on their hearts? What question?
What question?
Yeah, what question's been driving them?
You know what I think it is like, what I think the question that's been driving them is like, how do we create an experience where everybody can feel, can create transformation if they want to? And I think even lower than that question is like, how do we get people connected to their own desires? Because when I've been looking at, like, you know, like I was talking about those people that I see at the employment agency versus the people that are like the millionaire clients, it's like, I'm always wondering what it is that allows one person to, you know, get off the streets, for instance, and become a millionaire, or, you know, have the most abusive turmoil relationship alongside a bunch of health problems and then, you know, become a millionaire, versus these people that seem to be very stuck in their experiences. And when I look across the board of like what it actually is that creates transformation, and what we're going to be starting to question more and more is like, because, you know, it's really beautiful watching these people have these, being able to choose the life that they want to live. What's underneath them being able to have a transformation or not is actually desire. And I mean, we're back here again, right? So what is desire? It's like, it's a desire to actually want something. It's actually to have the desire to even think that you can have something. Because when I question these people that are at the employment agency, they don't actually know what they want. So of course we can't have what we want if we don't know what we want. And then they're bubbling around this understanding of they can't understand why they're unhappy and why they're finding life so difficult and why they feel like they need medication and, you know, all these issues that are coming up for them. It's like they don't even know what they want. And so if I tune into what that is, it's like desire. So then how do we get people connected to their desire? Connect them to their eros, right? We connect them to that sex center, their aliveness, because when we're alive, that's when we know what we want.
Yeah.
And basically, I think everyone's going to turn around to sexuality.
Well, that's the lens you're meant to see it with. Like, that's what's coming through you, and that's why this piece is here too. Like, it's. Yeah. But that is a question to guide the next decade, is for each person to be asking, what is it I truly want? You know, in this moment and then the next moment, and to allow those moments to change. Like that, it's not going to stay the same. It's not like you just choose once and then that's it. You're stuck. It's that the connection will create ongoing change.
Yeah.
Amazing. The next question is again from out in the future. Ms. 38. How's she doing?
Oh, she is living.
That wasn't the question. I just threw that one in.
It actually doesn't even matter. Again, it's kind of like what is the thing. But like if I tune into like what it's gonna look like, I keep like this image, it keeps dropping into my mind, right? And I don't feel like I decided this. This is not something that I would pick.
Yeah.
But it's like this, there's like this, I keep seeing myself on this huge, like amazing deck that's like, it's kind of like, you know, like a barley hut where it's got like no walls, but it's on this huge rock and it's overlooking the ocean. And there's just these massive like sex magic rituals that is just taking place there. And it's like on a place on the earth that is, you know how you've got like the grid of the earth where there's like potent,
the different ley lines and energy centers.
Yeah,
and stuff.
Energy centers. It's on a really potent energy center of the planet, and it's like this huge space where there's just like all this sex magic that goes on there, and it's like all these leaders of the world come there to create these sex magic rituals that create shifts on the planet. Basically, like that's where I think it's all going. But I don't think I'm going to have to wait till I'm 38 to get there. I think that's going to be before 38.
Well, maybe by 38, there's like multiples all happening at once in different
like
centers.
on all the different energy centers. Yeah.
It's like a worldwide activation.
Yes, exactly.
Worldwide temple activation.
Yeah.
Cool. So then final question we've got is, from this place in the future and looking back, what was the most important leadership trend you saw rising in that decade? What changed the world?
Between 2020 and 2030?
Yeah. But remembering
you know what I'm going to say.
Like being in the future and remembering it.
Yeah. Well, the trend that changed the world is that people started to activate their eros and realize that sexuality is a safe energy. So once we bring sexuality from the outskirts of society, where we like, you know, everything's illegal and nudity's illegal and like all this shit, once I figure out how to change the laws on nudity in public and sex in you know, just not being so on the fringes of society, and we bring it in and we actually integrate our sexuality within inside of ourselves, within inside of the society, so it becomes part of this wholesome experience of life, that's actually what's going to change everything.
And what ways does that show up first? Like, I know we were talking about like self-pleasure circles in the companies, but like how else does that really get out there as like a normal mainstream thing? Like where does it come through?
Well, it's an inside job, right? So it's just really this understanding of the erotic innocence on an individual basis of everyone getting it. But like the actual plan of how that's going to happen is it's going to shift. It's going to have a domino effect, right? So basically, the biggest movers and shakers of the world, celebrities, CEOs, huge big business owners, they are in charge of all the TV that we see on the TV, all of the advertising, all of the marketing, and all of that stuff. So if we can go in there and activate the CEOs into their eros, into their understanding of sexuality, that's going to have a ripple down effect. And so what's going to happen is once that ripples down, we're going to start to see everything shifting. We're not going to be selling sexy anymore as like, you know, you're seeing like a naked woman on the front of a car. We're going to be selling embodiment and having people come into their embodiment and stop like, so it's going to be less around like obsessing about the way that we look, and it's going to be more about obsessing about the way that we feel. And if once we're connected to the way we feel, then everybody's going to want to be feeling good, and we're going to stop selling to people from this place of like scarcity and shame and fear, and we're going to be actually like, we're going to be selling to them in this way of like, we want everyone to be expansive. You know, this is like what I do with, I have a sales team. I don't tell them to shame people into or fear people into joining any of my programs, because that's fucked. I tell them to get them into connection with their earth and make a decision about what's actually true for them.
Yeah.
And if it's not true for them, that's not the path, you know. So it's like, but it's going to be making decisions from a much more different place when their sexualities are more integrated.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. So Victoria's sales program coming soon.
Don't tell Jeff, he'll be mad.
It could be a partnership, I don't know. This is how well I learned. We're now doing a sex sales course, and
yeah, let's talk to him about collaboration.
I didn't suggest that, but sure. I think it could be fun. Are there any final words before we wrap this one up? That was our final question, but any final words, thoughts, downloads, vibes you want to share with the world we need to hear in 2020? Yeah,
I think that people should leave an emoji in the comments if they're going to go in self-pleasure after this call, which is my recommendation for everybody if they want to have an epic 2020.
Amazing. And so you're going to go drop one in the
definitely.
Comments?
I'm having all my friends over, so definitely.
Oh, that's funny. So many topics in my head, but we will call it a day for there. I'm so grateful for this conversation, for all the activation, for the future and the vision that you're bringing forward to help us all nourish ourselves and nourish the collective and reshape our conversations about relationships. And I love it. I'm so grateful for you and the work you do.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, babe.
Talk soon, Vic. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.